up guys, welcome back to Aquatic Elements. Today I thought I would do a video for our Back to Basics series focusing on the fly river turtle. Now you would have seen in the Monster Fish Mega Tank I have a fly river turtle which has now been named Sheila, and Sheila is currently just hiding under the piece of bogwood I've got in the tank. And I've said in the past that I would do a video on the fly river turtle looking at housing requirements, care requirements, what they eat, where they come from, and just a little bit more about the species, doing a sort of fact file video on them. So I'm going to put lots of B-roll and lots of videos over the screen so you can see our Sheila and also different fly river turtles as well from people's aquariums, and I'm just going to talk through what you need to do if you would like to keep one of these species and the requirements that they have. So first off, let's talk about what makes a fly river turtle so special. Now the fly river turtle is actually native to Papua New Guinea and also Indonesia, and these turtles are known for their unique flattened bodies and their flipper-like limbs. They're actually really similar looking to a sea turtle, and they're actually the only freshwater species of fully aquatic turtles. And they have a lifespan of sort of up to 30 years. I think in captivity they're averaging between sort of 20-25 years, but they can live up to 30 years, sometimes even longer as well. So if you are planning to keep one and keeping one long term, they are a big commitment, and they can actually reach up to 24 inches in size. Generally you'll find the females are getting bigger than the males. I've never actually seen one that big in captivity. I've only ever seen one at a aquarium shop or aquatic shop that was in captivity, so it is quite rare for them to get that size, but it's sort of more common for them to reach between sort of 12 to 18 inches in captivity. So now let's talk a little bit about their care requirements with the tank setup. Now you definitely need a large tank. Generally online it's recommended you need a tank of at least 150 gallons, but I think that is far too small. Now Sheila, my fly river turtle, is in a 420 gallon aquarium, and at the moment she is very small, but as she gets bigger and bigger, this aquarium is obviously going to become a lot smaller for her. And I would say minimum, in my opinion, you really want nothing less than a 350 to 400 gallon tank at a minimum, with anything sort of over 450 to 500 gallons being optimum or bigger if you can. Now fly river turtles obviously prefer clean water and well filtered water, like the rest of the sort of monster fish that you would keep alongside these turtles, and it's good to have a nice strong flow from your filter and a good quality filter system. Now generally they live in temperatures between 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've currently got mine at 26.5 degrees centigrade for those of you who use centigrade, and you're obviously going to need a water heater. I've currently got an 800 watt heater in my aquarium, and some people say that you should be having high levels of UVB light to help them metabolize calcium and also keep their shells nice and healthy. Now they don't necessarily need a specific UVB bulb or a basking area, as they are a fully aquatic turtle and they only actually come out of the water to lay their eggs. But having good strong lighting is obviously going to help with that. I would generally recommend having a sand or sort of a fine gravel, something nice and soft for them, something they're not going to damage the undershell on, or it's not going to cause any irritation to them, and definitely give them some hiding spots. They do like to take naps and hide away, and they do have obviously eyelids, so they are a reptile and they obviously aren't a fish, so they do have eyelids and they do like to take little naps now and again. So having some thick vegetation, some plants or some nice hiding spots will help them feel nice and safe. Now moving on to food. So I feed my fly river turtle mainly on grapes, bananas, and obviously he does eat the prawns and mussels that I do feed the rest of the fish. Now you really don't want to be feeding too much protein. he does really like to eat the prawns and mussels that I do give the other fish, but you don't want to be giving them too much protein because I've heard that it can inhibit their shell growth, and you basically want to be feeding them different pellets and sort of a fruit-based diet with some protein chucked in there as well. Now, I do have some pellets that he does eat, but I'm mostly feeding him on the sort of fruit diet and the protein-rich diet that I give my other fish. You can also give them different other veggies. Supposedly you can give them kale, collard greens and squash, but I found that mine mainly likes the banana and grapes so far, but I do like to try and experiment and give them sort of different foods every now and again. Now, you can obviously, if you're going for that protein area of the diet, you can feed them shrimp, worms and bits of fish every couple of times a week, but sort of I would say you're looking at around a 65 to 70% fruit sustenance within the diet, and then going for 30 to 35% of that protein diet. So now we're talking a little bit about interaction. We've gone over the housing and the feeding, but now we're talking about interaction. These are reptiles and they are quite clever animals, so they will get used to you when keeping them in your aquarium. And if you do handle them, make sure you always do it really gently and don't pick them up by the tail. Definitely support the shell, and obviously you need to be really careful of their mouth. You do not want to get bitten by one, especially if they are a larger turtle, because they will be able to take a chunk out of you or really hurt you. But I would say if you're going to handle them, don't do it very often. It's best not to. It's best just to leave them to it. And I've actually only ever handled mine to add it to my aquarium. I've never actually removed it from my aquarium, and I never plan to do that. And if you're removing it from the water, do it for a limited time just to avoid any stress that it may cause. But as I said, I personally wouldn't handle it. They will get used to you when you feed them, and you can end up actually hand feeding them, and they are really nice, personable pets. So there are a few illnesses as well that I would like to cover. Generally, I haven't had any issues with my fly river turtle, but a few signs to watch out for are lethargy and also any shell discoloration. They can get a fungus on the shell, which is shown through a discoloration, and this can actually be really detrimental to them, and it could even lead to death if you leave it for too long. So definitely make sure that it doesn't develop any fungal issues, and sometimes they can get a sort of rash looking red mark or red marks to the underneath of their shell. So keep an eye on that, especially if you've got any sharp gravel. It might irritate the underneath of the shell. I've actually kept mine just on sand, and I found that it's doing really well on the sand substrate, and the tank it actually originally came from was on sand as well, because if you didn't know, I actually rescued this from another hobbyist. I didn't actually personally buy this from a shop. This was actually from a tank breakdown. And that is really it. So that is my summary of the fly river turtle. Hopefully I've gone over the housing, the feeding, also any illnesses as well. And obviously if you guys have any questions, you can leave them down below. Now, I haven't mentioned, but these are a CITES import reptile in the UK, and they are very endangered in the wild. So I really want to stress, if you are owning one of these turtles, please, number one, make sure it has been imported and it is a captive bred turtle. We don't want any more turtles being taken from the wild for the aquarium trade. And you would have potentially seen, when I was out in Thailand on my Thailand tour, I did see a lot of these turtles, and I'm not sure if they were captive bred or wild caught. And if they were wild caught, it's really not good for the wild stocks of these amazing aquatic turtles. So if you are importing them and you do purchase one, make sure it has that CITES paperwork. My turtle does have its paperwork, and you don't want to be buying any that have been wild caught. So please make sure they are captive bred turtles. But that is it for today's video. If you do have any questions, as I mentioned, please leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.